for you. Hey, Asante, everybody that's coming in. Hello, hello. It's a beautiful day, I'm guess. So I had enough time to fix my eyebrows. Hopefully it's not looking too dark. We will see. Oh, thank you. I really just, I just threw on the blazer. It was really my pajamas I in, but you know how it go. So we're waiting for Desmond to come in. We have some great things to discuss today. I even come prepared. I have questions, oh yeah. So it's gonna be good. Hello, hello. Thanks for joining in. Oh, thank you so much. You guys check him out if you want some nice masks. Keep yourself stylish but also safe at the same time. So hope everybody's doing good. Outside looking nice, all yeah. Nice to curry. Okay, Desmond is here. Hello, hello. All right, so we're going to go live. Hey, Roger. Hola, ¿cómo estás? Hello.
Hola, how you doing?
Hola, hola. How are you? Is my camera okay? Is yours 14 okay? Hours.
I did.
It's showing like this way, but
I'm
I'm
sorry.
fine as long as.
Is it better now?
Let me see. Yes, it's good. Good.
Awesome.
Oh, sorry. Yes, looking good. How are you?
I'm great. I guess you got one of my favorite travel shirts, and I can't go anywhere. So.
Oh, nice. Yeah. Well, it's nice that you have a nice travel shirt, but it's just unfortunate that we can't get anywhere. So
Yes.
we're going to definitely get into discussion. But first and foremost, I just want to say thank you for taking time out your day. Hello. Just discussing and really getting to the point of what's important right now. So
Thank you for having me.
yeah, no problem. So first things first, tell us a little bit about yourself.
Well, my name is Desmond Washington. I'm originally from Georgia, but I've been living in Florida for the past almost over a decade now. I went to undergrad in film equipment, and I've been living in Tampa, Florida for the past 7 years now.
Nice, nice, nice. I know Tampa is a great area. I like the beaches over there, the Clearwater Beach and
Yeah.
Beach.
St. Pete Bay Area, yes, ma'am.
Yeah, very, very nice area as well. So nice, nice. Seems like you're well rounded. You have, knowing about Georgia and Florida, everywhere.
Yeah, I mean, my town's called a little smaller. It's Effingham County. Guyton is where I was born and raised, but it's right outside Savannah, Georgia.
Nice, nice,
Yep.
nice. Sounds good. So also now tell us a little bit about your business.
Yep. Oh, I have a travel agency here in Florida, but my major thing is I want people to collect more memories and fewer things. So I started in 2018, and I usually just try to personalize every travel experience and add my own little tad bits of traveling and experiences in different parts of the country. So I don't really try to push, the most expensive thing on people. I just wanted to have a good experience, like I'm going on a trip, which I wish I was, but I just try to make it more personable.
Great, great. So I have a question for you about talking about traveling. So let's say that I'm pretty sure there's a lot of people right now that have never traveled, let's say internationally.
Right.
So what is one place that you could travel internationally that may be good for somebody's budget?
Good for budget? Well, we have, when you travel, it's all about what location you live in. So someone that lives in California is going to be a little different from travel that, Florida, that may be a little bit centralized, the more Caribbean islands. So if I can say the southeast region of the United States, I would say I'm biased, but I experienced the Belize 2 years ago, and I'm very frugal, and it's a place to go if you want to travel somewhere on a smaller budget. So Belize.
Great, great. Yeah, so that sounds good. I think that's one thing. There's a lot of people that may want to travel and they probably aren't too sure of how to travel just yet. So I think that's really good to keep in mind that even if you plan to travel in the future, it's definitely affordable. You can do it. You just have to do the research, I would say. Right?
Yep.
Great.
And that's where I come in at if you're a little apprehensive.
Yes, yes, yes. And he's traveled to many, well, we're going to get into that. We're going to get into the good details, you guys. So, I ain't going to leave you hanging. So the next question I definitely want to ask is, so where have you traveled to?
Where have I traveled? Well, I haven't been to many, but I've only been to 18 countries so far. But
that's nothing. That's great.
I know, but
been to 18, ice places. I mean, you know.
But some of the highlights of my travel was, or even before, I love Asian-based countries still, even though everything is going on. But one of my first major trips was South Korea. It really opened my eyes to their culture and how family-oriented they are. So
Wow.
I was really blessed to have an opportunity to travel to South Korea. And then some other highlights, of course, Colombia, Cuba, like I said, Belize again. I'm going to keep on harping on them because I really enjoyed my time in Belize.
Nice.
And then, of course, I went to Beijing, seeing the Great Wall. That was definitely a highlight. I'm a pretty big history buff. So being able to see the Great Wall in person was pretty amazing.
Wow.
I'll definitely remember that forever.
That's amazing. Yeah, I think that's something I would definitely love to see too. The Great Wall of China. I think that, like you mentioned, it has a lot of history. So that's another thing as far as with traveling. You get a chance to know not only about the culture of the actual country you may be visiting, but you also get to understand the initial history behind it as well.
Right. Yeah. And one of the things I love most about traveling is actually meeting the people, because sometimes we can get an isolated concept of how people are until you actually go meet them, and you know, and you're like, man, it was nothing like I expected. So that's what I really love the most about traveling.
Great. That sounds good. Good. So another question that I do have here that I think is very important that we've talked about, definitely traveling to different countries, countries that you expressed were really nice to travel to. Mm-hmm. How does one start traveling? What are some great things to prepare someone to start initially traveling? Like, how do you get a passport to begin with?
Well, if I can only speak on U.S. based, you know, every nationality is going to be a little different, but correct, since probably most of our viewers are from U.S., thankfully, it'd be a little bit easier for me to explain. But literally, you can pick up a packet from your local post office, or you can download it online on U.S. Travel Gov. But I would prefer that you get it from your post office, because they can also, most major post office, set up your interview too. So once you get your packet, you have to, the biggest thing that I have my customers run into is actually getting that proof of citizenship. So that is usually in forms of a birth certificate. So on the birth certificate, you have to have your mother, your father, and where you were born. That's the biggest things that people run into, or trying to hunt that down. Because some people maybe think they were born in one county or city, and they were maybe born in a neighboring area or place they didn't even know about. So that's that a proof of valid ID, something with your picture on it. If you're in the military, that works. Of course, state IDs. If you even have an old passport, that's they accept that as long as it's valid still. And then the biggest thing people want to know about is the fees. So you can get a passport card. Some people actually have a passport card where you can travel to North America-based countries by land only. So you have to drive in. So you can go to Canada and Mexico only by land. So people sometimes they went for the more affordable option, which is $30, and they just have the card, but you can't actually fly into any other countries unless you have the booklet, which is $110.
Wow, great. I think those are great options. I didn't know about the driving option. That's great to know. Yeah. I think that's also another options for people to also travel if they may have fear flights or something like that. So I do have another question for you to add to that additional statement now. So what about if you already have a passport? Hey, Matrix. Hey, everybody that's joining. What if you already have a passport and your passport is coming to expire? Should you wait until the year before to renew that initial passport, or should you kind of see that it's coming up and then try to renew that passport then?
That's actually a very good question. So the major rule of thumb for international travel is 6 months. So whenever you get within 6 months of your expiration date, a lot of countries won't allow you to enter their country if you don't have at least 6 months of travel left on your passport itself. So my advice would you would do it before 6 months up. And for the cost, it's actually, I think this is crazy. If you already have it, why is it the same price? But it's unfortunate it's the same price. It's $110 for the renewal also. Wow. Yeah, it's every 10 years. Yeah. Wow. And then another tad bit, just in case anyone has kids or younger individuals, anybody under 16. So like say you got a passport when you were 8. whenever you turn 16, you actually have to renew it automatically. Whenever you turn 16, you
Wow.
can't keep on. You can't hang on to it until your 10 years expire.
Okay. Wow, that's great to know. I didn't know that as well. And I think it definitely makes sense, especially with children and as they change over the years, they want to make sure that
Especially the face.
yeah, they want to know
Right.
if the picture there is actually consistent with how they currently look. So
You got
that's
it. You got
good.
it.
Very, very good. So now with that initial passport that you mentioned, I think it's safe to say that once you're renewing it, that 6 months ahead is just that cutoff point. So it's like, all right, people, if you know Carnival coming up, don't wait until the week for
Yes.
Carnival
Yes.
to try
Yes.
to get the passport. So
I mean,
that's
especially
good.
with travel, it's always best to do it in advance because you don't want to get stuck with having to expedite it, which is an extra $60. So I didn't speak on this earlier, but usually a passport can take 6 to 8 months to return. But if you actually expedite it, it's going to take about 3 weeks. And then usually that's just general times. If you expedite it, it's about a month. And then usually if it's not super busy, 6 to 8 weeks. When I first got mine 4 years ago, it only took me about 2 weeks. So that's just the time they give. You know how businesses do. They just give a long time before it really needs to be.
I have one additional last question about a passport now. So let's say if somebody had a passport and they lost the passport.
Yep.
Is there a process of having to do that initial steps again to where they have to kind of get that renewed? Or
Yeah, you have to take it. Same thing. You have to take a picture. They're real big about passports. You have to take a picture again and unfortunately pay, even if it's stolen from you. It's no stolen fee. Everything's very generic when it comes to passports. So it's that $110 for the booklet, and it's $80. Unfortunately, I didn't speak on that, but it's $80 for anyone under 16 for the booklet.
Okay, very good, good, good. Mm-hmm. So moving along to our next question now, what are some traveling tips? I know a lot of us may not necessarily have experienced different countries and stuff, but what are some general guidelines that has helped you while you started traveling?
Well, like I said before, I'm pretty frugal, and I try to, offer that to my clients if they would like. But one of my big things is travel off season. So a lot of people think that travel is very expensive, and it can be if you're trying to go to, a very hot, popular destination in the middle of the summer. So you really have to be a little bit more flexible on the way you want to adjust your travel times if you are worried about the cost. So that'd be a major travel tip. Another big thing, people are so weary of layovers. So whenever you have a layover, especially me, sometimes I've had literally a 19, 18-hour layover before, and I'll store my luggage and go experience that city, even if it's in a continental U.S. or another country. You get your passport stamped and you get to visit that city for a little bit. You might want to go there again. So that's a major tip that I will say. A couple tips. One other thing. When I first started traveling, this is it's very simple and people might laugh, but you need to tell your financial institution, if you want to take a card, tell them that you're traveling. It's very simple now. You can just go online and just say, I'm gonna be in Belize for X amount of days to X amount of days, because if you can imagine, they see a swipe in Belize out of nowhere, they're gonna automatically shut it down, and you might be without monies for a while. So that'd be
very important. Thank you. That's very, very important. One of the viewers said, Desmond said the grass looks pretty green for New York. Well, you didn't know I photoshopped it before doing the live.
No, you did.
But yes, and
that is pretty beautiful though.
I think. Oh, thank you. I think it's great tips that you mentioned as far as with layovers. Even myself included, there's been many times where I had enough time in a layover to experience something new. I think one tip that I could personally add to that is that if you are unfamiliar with a country and this is your first time going to a place, look on YouTube, look at TripAdvisor, or you can even talk to yourself, Desmond, and find out, say, hey, what are some different things to do? So you don't have to spend all your time there already researching. You already know that prior. So you know how to get to that museum that you looked at prior. You know how to get to that Instagrammable place where people take pictures. So it's so.
But YouTube, like you said, YouTube is your friend. Before I go to the country, I probably at least literally 60, 70 video. I'm obsessed watching the place I'm going to. So I feel like I'm already been there once I've traveled there before. So
Exactly. Like I like
yes,
to call it, I'll call it YouTube University. I mean,
yes, yes,
I
yes.
have a doctorate at this point from YouTube
Mm-hmm.
University. I mean, so it is what it is. So now, the big question that I think a lot of people are just really concerned with, they really want to know, they really
Yeah.
want to find out is what are some changes that we could expect with traveling
Mm-hmm.
post COVID-19?
Man, this is gonna be very fluent. I know some people are avid cruisers. I'll touch on the cruise export on the first. I think you're gonna experience more in-depth medical screenings before you get on a cruise ship. So they're gonna know where you've been prior, before you even get to the terminal itself. So, and then also when you get to the terminal, you're gonna experience more hygiene washing stations, more sanitizer station, temperature checks throughout your whole, not just one time when you get on, but throughout the whole cruise itself. And another thing, big thing that people were really adamant about is being quarantined in their room. So I think a lot of these bigger ships, cruise ships, are going to actually set aside rooms that are basically a quarantine wing itself. So you won't have people shut up in their wings rooms because they'll send those people that may be sick or infected to that wing itself. So from a cruise standpoint, I think those are some major changes that you might be able to see. And in flying, we already see that a lot of the major U.S. airlines, they are want you to wear face masks or face coverings. A lot of them also say they're going to do enhanced temperature checks, even if it's not from a person to person. Maybe body scans. Those are becoming more prominent, like Asian-based countries. So that might be something that they bring here also.
Wow. That's very interesting because I know the last time I traveled was back in March. And I know that when I reached in Jamaica, they were actually doing temperatures. But when I was in Miami at that time, they wasn't doing that. But I
Right.
think one thing that I saw that they started implementing was a lot of the seats on the flights were empty. So they
Mm-hmm.
wanted it in a way where people where one person was sitting in a seat, the next space was empty, and then another person was sitting
Right.
there. So with that and planes reaching capacity, sorry, little dog's barking. But with that, does that mean that um, planes are going to be at capacity more, and people may have to take extra time to try to book their flight ahead of time, so they know that they actually have a flight to go to where they need to go?
Well, that's a dual problem because especially now it might be a second wave of something, so you don't want to book too far in advance. So that's the one concern. And then your second concern is like you just said, uh, the easiest way from like you were explaining, a lot of a lot of airlines are taking out the middle seat, so it'd be which nobody likes to sit in anyway. So
Yeah.
so you'll have the window seat and aisle seat, and then it'll be the same way. Even though it's not 6 feet, it just gives people a little bit of comfort. So yes, initially, yeah, it's going to be, if you take out the middle seat, that's a lot of seats on the plane. So yes, they're going to fill up a lot faster.
Wow. So I think another question to add to that is, in your opinion, if they're going to be making all of these changes about seating arrangements and how much people can get on flights, do you think that the consumer now, that the financial burden of having to change these flights and all of these different things, do you think that fees are now going to be generated for us to where we have to pay these fees to accommodate for these changes?
They are struggling so much right now. At least the major 5 U.S. airlines are only operating at 20 to 10% of their capacity. So it's going to have to be somewhere of a give and take, because there's no way if I see a flight that's, that I previously saw for, $200 or $150, now $500, there's no way I'm going to be wanting to travel anymore. So it's going to have to be a happy medium somewhere. But initially, I think it's going to be a lot lower prices. But on the back end, because they have to, everybody's a business, they have to make their money up somewhere. So I think maybe on the back end, maybe you will see a little bit of absorbent cost of baggage. Maybe Southwest don't do any two free check bags anymore. Maybe you have to pay for each bag now. So
Wow.
they have to make their money up somewhere. And I don't know any of this. I'm just saying from a business standpoint, you have to make up your money somewhere. So
Right. So basically, the best thing is just, take yourself and put yourself in the suitcase as a carry-on, pretty much.
Yeah, there you go. There you go. Yep.
So, wow. And I think like you said, at an economical and also at a financial standpoint, it does make sense that they will have these fees to really offside those costs. So, wow, that's really interesting to say the least. So, in your opinion as well, what about those snacks and, those complimentary drinks that they do give people on the plane? Would
Yeah.
that get cut out? Should we
Hey,
have to bring our
hey,
own
I'm gonna
cans
say
of water?
I'm gonna say this now. Everybody been laughing at Spirit all this long time, and I'm an avid Spirit. I love Spirit so much, So people are laughing because you got to pay for everything on Spirit. So a lot of these major airlines are gonna be moving towards the same thing. I say you have to make your monies up somewhere. So
Yeah.
maybe not for water like you do on Spirit, but maybe for the complimentary things they usually give, you definitely gonna have to pay for.
That's true. I know, like, these airlines, like you mentioned, Spirit, they do charge you little fees. Like, for example, if you breathe
Everything.
hard, that's $10. If you want Perrier water, that's another $2.50. Yep. So it's like, yes, I do see that definitely coming in. So I think another question to add to that is, how can you safely travel right now? Like, what can you do aside of practicing those social distancing and hygiene practices to keep yourself safe, whether it be try to fly at smaller airports versus trying to fly into a larger airport like JFK, which is here in New York? Or what are some other ideas, in your opinion?
My big thing is, just like everybody's doing now, I think the major thing is whatever you feel most comfortable with. So, and this time, a lot of countries that you maybe want to experience are closed to the U.S. anyway. So, you have a little bit more time to think about where you want to go. But my big thing is whatever you feel comfortable with in your protection. I think that's the biggest thing that you can do.
Great. And I totally agree with you. And especially that if coming from a person, if you know your body's best and you feel that you may be immune compromised, this may not be the best time for you to travel right now. You could definitely research where you would like to go later on and definitely do it at a safer time. So yes, I think that's really good advice to give. So I know we just talked about fees that travelers should expect in the near future as far as with baggage and so on. What about fees in the initial airport already? So if they're going to, let's say, charge $10 for water in the actual airplane, would that mean that a lot of these smaller, let's say, concession stands in the actual airport, would that mean a price increase? Would that mean also, hey, they're going to charge maybe $15 for this bottle of water here versus when you get on the plane? So do you think that may offset some kind of financial burden?
It will, but the prices are already, as many people can attest to, they're already pretty expensive. I try to bring my own snacks, and I bring like an empty bottle where I can fill up my water at when I get through the check side. So there's some ways around it, but I definitely can see the prices going up because, as you can imagine, a lot of these places have been either closed or not experienced as nearly a volume as they would on a normal a travel time. And a lot of people don't forget, we missed spring break. We're going into summer now. So a lot of these countries are deprived of 80 to 70% of tourism alone. So,
wow.
Unfortunately, some people are somewhere you have to make up it's either from a business aspect, they're going to think of, okay, let me lower the prices to draw more people in, or let me hike up the prices now to try to recoup some of my money that I had.
Right. Wow. And you mentioned a good point where a lot of countries where some of their prime income is just tourism alone. Like I know, for example, a lot of Caribbean countries.
Yes.
Yes. So that also trickles down to the employees and to their economy, because there may be a lot of people that may work in the tourism, hospitality industry. Yeah. It's quite a few avenues that these people do work. So again, it's just that COVID-19 has not only impacted one area, it's just a trickle effect
everyone
of different things.
Yes.
So wow, that's just really crazy. So another question to ask you now, what are your opinions and thoughts on COVID-19 in response to your business?
Man, it's been, I'm being totally honest, it's been rough. I'm not gonna lie, it's been pretty rough. I think I have this is not my only source of income, but yeah, it's been rough. I mean, only things I've been doing now is cancellations and not even any rebook. People are nervous, so I haven't been doing any rebookings, just cancellations. And a lot of these airlines are thankfully extending their rebookings to 2020, 2021. So that's making people, 2021 and 2022. So that's making people feel a little bit more comfortable about traveling at some point.
Wow. Wow. And it's just unfortunate that things like this has to happen. And like you mentioned, definitely another stream of income has helped you in this time. And I'm very happy to hear that, because that is not the reality for others, where,
Yes.
right now that their job or whatever they're doing is impacted to the point where they're not seeing any kind of revenue coming in. So
Mm-hmm.
I think that for businesses in the future, I think this may even create a model, some kind of, even another insurance may even come to the forefront to really make sure that it saves companies from experiencing so much losses.
Yeah. But at the same time, there's no way that anybody could predict it.
Yeah.
This from the way, from the length of time it's occurred. There's no way that some people could predict this. So, but I'm a very positive person. Like I said before, a lot of countries are 70-80% are deprived off of tourism income, and
Yeah.
then along with that, over 10% of the GPD of the whole global is 10% of tourism. So that's a pretty large chunk of tourism itself. It's like
Wow.
1.1 trillion. So we're back up. People really want to travel again. It's just going to do it when it's safe for them to do so.
Exactly. And I agree. I agree. Especially when you use the word safer. It's like right now, I think it's still a little bit unclear. Even here in New York City, that's a city that has been heavily impacted by this overall COVID-19 situation. I think it's still a little bit too early to really explore the opportunity of trying to go somewhere without a face mask. I just think that it's just unsafe. We should just definitely use our best judgment at this time and say, hey, you know what? If it's not worth it, if it can't
Right.
wait, we should just not worry about it right now. Doesn't mean that it wouldn't happen again in the future, but
Right.
we just have to use our best judgment. So definitely great things that you definitely mentioned. So that is it for the questions that I have. So I would love to open the floor for anybody that have any questions about anything, concerns. How do you feel? I mean, how are you guys feeling? What are your questions and concerns? So please feel free to type that below, and Desmond will get to you on that.
I see one question here. She says, Miss Forever Lauren, are cruises offering refunds to people who haven't purchased travel insurance? So this has been actually a very big, even from airline standpoint, because people say, oh, my friend with Delta got this refund. Every business is different. So I would have to tell Miss Forever Lauren to look at whatever cruise line she initially booked with, and then see if they are offering refunds. But if they're not traveling, or if they blocked out the date, they're going to offer you some type of refund. And I can speak from Carnival because I had a good bit of people booked on Carnival. Either they're offering you a 100% full refund, or 125 refund plus a onboard credit. So they're just trying to get people cruising again. So
I agree. I agree. And I think, what about the experience of the cruise? I think that's also a good question to ask. Because versus, in the cruise in the past, where people were able to see these shows and able to go dance in a club that they have there, would that experience now be limited due to the fact that we have to practice these kind of social distancing rules
it
to a
has to
certain
be.
extent?
It has to be. Even from the ports of call that people are normally maybe stop at. Some of these countries that have isolated COVID-19, they're going to be very leery of letting off thousands of people into their country when they haven't had any outbreaks or anything. So I think that's a big concern, and something that you might want to take in consideration when you're thinking about a cruise. Is you might not get the full experience that you either used to, or if it's your first time traveling, unless you're looking for just relaxation on the water, you might not get that full cruise experience, like you said, with the parties and even from a gambling standpoint on the cruise ships. People forget about the chips, all the chips touching the cards. There's a lot of transfer, of droplets and everything just from those little things.
Wow, and that's a good point that you mentioned. Even with the gambling standpoint, I didn't even think about that. Like you mentioned, even pulling the handle, how will they have enough time to really sanitize those items versus people coming in and playing regularly?
It's
So it's, yeah, like Vidal said, it's so true. People are scared. I think they are scared. They're more scared of the initial coming in contact with this when they've spent days on out staying home to try to avoid being infected.
right. Yep. And I think people are so, we've been quarantined so long and people are just ready to go, but you just have to do it. Even for me, from a business standpoint, you have to do it as safely as possible. It's not worth your health trying to, experience a country for the first time.
Oh, somebody said, what things should we consider when planning an itinerary in COVID times? That's a really good question.
Very good question. So during these times, a lot of people are moving towards isolation. So people are moving towards hikes, things where you don't have as much large groupings of people. So even if you do, whenever you do feel a little safe to travel internationally, maybe not go to things that you're going to be surrounded by hundreds of people at a time. So maybe go on a more a waterfall or something that you won't have as much contact with people itself.
Great, great. I think that's a good point. I think I can even add something to that. I think look at possibly doing self-guided tours, whether
Yep.
it be you looking at different statues or what the city has to offer. You could do your research ahead of time and do your own tour versus going in these groups and these large groups.
Mm-hmm.
And my uncle, he travels a lot to different countries, and he likes to do bike tours. But the only reason why I can't really say that may be safe is because if you do want to do a bike tour, I think you should bring your own personal sanitation as far as like
Right.
and so on, and definitely clean that and sanitize that bike if that's something you may consider that you may want to do. But that may also be a great option of also getting views of that city, traveling, and also getting that history and just kind of knowing it beforehand. So I think that was a really great question, and I think that we should really take time to plan our outgoings for the future once it is safe to do so.
I agree.
Very good. You guys have some great questions coming in.
Yeah, it did.
Yeah, great questions. Let's see if anything else is coming in. So for yourself now, I have a question. Where's one place do you see yourself going to once it is safe to travel? Everything looks pretty okay.
Uh, my big goal. I was really trying to finish off the rest of the Central American countries this year.
Mhm.
So I experienced Honduras. So honestly, just from a safety aspect, I honestly really don't know, but it'll probably be somewhere in Central. It's so easy for Floridians to get to Central American based countries. So probably somewhere in Central America. Yeah.
Nice. I also have a question for you. Oh no, I hope I didn't forget. Is there any questions? The question that I did have for you now, as far as with traveling, is how do you plan your travel? Like, how do you say to yourself, okay, I'm going to go to this country? Do you just kind of have that prepared beforehand, or do you kind of have like a bucket list and kind of check that off? How does one start planning and telling themselves, all right, this is the things that I have to do so I can be able to travel to a place?
hmm So my biggest thing, people always say travel is expensive. So look at, the flights is probably gonna be one of the most flights and lodging is where your two big expenses come in at. So if you more, some people might only want to just lay on the beach. Some people are like me, I might want to try to do 2 or 3 countries in one trip.
Yes.
So I think whatever is more conducive for you or like what you're doing, don't compromise it. So a lot of people, the big thing now is group travel, and sometimes people have such a miserable group experiences because you have people that want to hike and be out all day and experience as much as possible, and you got some people who simply just want to lay on the beach, read their book, and order a couple cocktails. So I think the biggest thing is who you're traveling with. So make sure it's like-minded people. It don't have to be the same thing, but make sure it's not total bipolar opposites because it's a lot that goes into travel, especially now your first trips that you plan post COVID-19. You don't want to have a bad experience just because maybe selected the wrong person to travel with.
I well agreed. I think that is a good statement that you said. Um, Definitely traveling with like-minded people, and I think that uh, travel. One another thing that you also want to mind as well is when you're in a group or once people were traveling in a group, also discuss costs with your friends or whoever you're traveling with, because I think some people have this idea of, oh, I want to travel on a budget and buy
Mhm.
that keychain for 99 cents. And then you might have another group that's like, what are you talking about?
Let's
Are
pop
you
the bottles. Let's
crazy?
do it
I'm
all. Yeah.
trying to buy the Douce
Yeah.
at Club Whatso, whatever, whatever. So
Yeah.
it's like you want to introduce that idea of cost factor, like, okay, like the other person just mentioned, plan it have like an itinerary. Okay, this is where we plan to go. This is what we plan to do, and kind of give that information beforehand before somebody say, you know what, I don't have $500 to go to Disney World, so we
Right.
can say, okay, well, let's go to somewhere else. So I think that also helps offset confusion and disagreements beforehand, just having that kind of like midpoint of knowing what you want to do and that costs ahead of
Mhm.
time.
Yeah.
So I also have another question that I think is very interesting. I think people may not know all about all inclusive traveling, like traveling to the Dominican Republic and experiencing that. Can you talk a little bit more about that versus traveling on your own and just doing everything individually?
Right. So I'm going to preface this because this is where a lot of my bookies come from is all inclusive travel. So with all inclusive travel, if you're one of those people that want to stay in one spot and enjoy that area for what it is, how beautiful the beaches or something may be, the all-inclusive option is to be best for you. So within all-inclusive, your food, your drinks, which are usually domestic to that country. So if you're looking for a drink that is not domestic to that country, it's probably not going to be included in the all-inclusive. Your food, some sports activities are usually included in the all inclusive. But one big thing that people love about all inclusive is once you get there, is no more payment. You know, you might have a little wristband just saying that you're associated with that resort. But once you get there, that's it. Your food's taken care of. Most of your water activity are taken care of. Only thing that you might want to do, like I'll take Jamaica for example. If you travel to Montego Bay and you want to do some excursions, that might not be included. So yeah, if you want to do some other excursions itself.
Very well said. Well said.
Oh,
And
and I'm sorry, the other half of it, my apologies. The second part of your question, the other type of travel, like myself, I want to try to get a more authentic feel of the country itself. So, I'm trying to get in the heart of going where the local. My favorite thing is do what the locals do. So, and that's how you meet. I have so many friends I've met internationally. Just places they don't usually see tourists at. So, and a lot of people when you meet locals from other countries, I haven't met. It's not a country that I haven't been to where people aren't accepting to you and want to talk to you and pick your brain about what's going on in the United States. And sometimes you're like, man, they know a lot more than I expected.
yeah,
But
exactly. Well
uh,
said. And I think all inclusives are really nice. I know some of the best all inclusives I've experienced and I've been to have been in Jamaica, and there's so many all inclusives all over. So I think it's a great opportunity to try both, like you mentioned. Try all inclusive one time. Try to definitely travel and venture out on your own. So
right.
I think that leads up to a question of what about dangers of traveling? What are some dangers that people should really be aware of?
Yeah. So the big thing that I can do and that I started when I started my travel agency is always check the travel.gov website and see what level it's for criteria that they rate countries at. So it can be from any medical reasons or sudden stanchions, murder, unfortunately rapes. They add all that into each country. So if you check that website, if you see someone's at a 4, it literally says do not travel. I think 3 is reconsider, 2 is moderate, and then 1 is safe place to travel. So yeah, I would definitely say check that website. Another key part: always photocopy your passport. So if you are in a larger country, you can actually go to the embassy, and it's going to fast track your losing your passport is probably in another country is probably one of the most scariest things that can happen. But if you already have photocopies of it, at least it can definitely, or just take a picture of it, have it in your phone, or send it to your email, just in case your phone's lost. Also, that's a really good, something for safety. And then also, don't do stuff you wouldn't even do in the United States. Like, don't try to be too flashy and showing off how much wealth you might have, especially if you travel to a third world country. we have to really be considerate of how much $1 is to them.
Yeah.
So if you know, somebody that maybe never thought about robbing somebody before, they see you show up with all this bling bling and they literally made $30 that month.
Yeah.
You know, that might be something they might reconsider for the first time.
I agree. I think that is very good points that you made there as well. You do definitely want to be mindful of the culture of the country you're going to, and definitely understand the culture of that place. Because, for example, what we do here and what people, I mean, what people do in New York, well, not even New York, but what people do all over the world is very different from where
Right.
they're visiting. So I think that's a great point. And I think something else that I can add to that is be mindful what you're bringing with you on a trip. If you know that it's something very valuable and it's like very expensive, it's probably not the best thing to bring with you unless
Right.
it's something with a camera or something that's different. But if you have different kind of jewelry or different things like that that is very valuable to you, I think I would just leave it home. You don't want to risk, not only risk the opportunity of it getting stolen, but you also don't want to lose it.
Right.
So I think that's also a great thing. Just be mindful of what you're bringing with yourself. Don't bring all your credit cards. Just bring one that you know that you're going to use pretty frequently. Don't pull out too much money, but just enough money that will last you on the trip. So different things like that.
About money, I actually have used to tell. I read something in a blog about 3 years ago. So it's always good to keep enough cash to get back to the airport. So always leave that amount of money at your wherever you're staying, enough money to get back to the airport. And also, unless you really don't know what you're going to be doing that day, always, especially when you exchange money, don't ever have all your money on you at separate times. So try to put it in different locations. So maybe put some in your backpack, maybe put some in your pocket, maybe put some in your wallet, some in your fanny pack, but only try to take as much money as you need for that day. So that one might help you with budgeting, and two, if something do unfortunately happen with you, you know, unfortunately get mugged or you even lose it, you only lost that money that you're going to use for that day only.
Great. And this is a good question that was asked because I was just leading up to my next question. It says, speaking of money, do you think it's best to exchange money at the airport?
So this is very good. That's a very good question, Miss Darling and Nikki. My biggest thing was I always change just a little bit of money for I can have that currency in that country. But no, usually you're going to get your best exchange rates at that bank of that country. So a lot of people always go to these exchange parlors right off the airport. If you look at the exchange rate before you go there, for you to know at least about how much money you should get back. Right. And there's a lot of various apps that you can plug in. But from my experiences, the best exchange rate you're going to get is from a verified bank of that country. So if you just take your U.S. currency in there and they exchange the money for you. So and it's more secure. You know, they usually have security guards at the bank, and you're going to know that the interest rate you're going to get is pretty comparable of the U.S. standard or the going rate at that time.
Wow, that's great. That's really good to know. And I personally could definitely back you up on that. I do not exchange my money at the airport as well. It has to be something very rare, but I personally don't like to do it because it's very expensive. Mm-hmm. So another question I could definitely ask about that is, is there any apps that you like to use while you're traveling, whether it be downloading a conversion rate app?
Yes.
How much you're spending, or talk a little about that.
So especially if it's a currency that you're not familiar with. So me, it's usually anything outside the U.S. And a lot of times it's good to know, because you can imagine when they see you're like dollar signs, boom. So if you know the taxi ride from your airport to wherever you're going should only be $10, $11, try to research that before you go. So my big thing is I use an app called Exchange Currency, and it's a very simple app, but you put in that country. So when I was in Singapore, I put in Singapore, and you put in there. So I had no clue about Singapore other than the amount of research I did before. Yeah. And they'll tell you how much it is from a dollar amount. So you put it in there, and it says how much it is in U.S. currency.
Sounds good. I think that leads up to another question about transportation in another country. Can you talk a little bit about that? Is it best to take that cab right off of the airport, or should I really look at public transportation? What are your experiences on that?
So my big two things about this is how far it is and safety. So You know, Uber is really big. Uber's Lyft is very big in the United States, but some countries that you might go to, that might not even be available. So you always want to do a little bit of so in Asian-based countries, Grab is really big. So you always want to go know at least what you're offered and download those apps before you go there. So already put your login information, already put your credit card information, because once you get there, and it's another point from one of your other questions, is you always want to contact your cell phone provider and see what is the international data fees, because sometimes it might be just smart just to get a SIM card, and just use your phone for the pictures, but use a SIM card or maybe even a flip phone just for you to have access to call and everything. So you always want to contact your cell phone provider to see exactly how much those international data fees are. But yeah, you know, continue further. I usually always try to do some type of Uber or Grab or some. Sometimes though, some infrastructure like Singapore or some Asian-based countries, their train systems and public transit is so good. Literally, they have things that take you from the airport to where you need to go for very the cheapest cost you can get. So
great. I think those are really great tips. I think one thing that I would recommend as a tip for myself is that I always get a data plan for my phone when I'm traveling. So my phone, I like for my phone to be working just in case I have to call for emergency or call a family member. But one thing that I like to do is that if I'm in a Uber and I'm not familiar with the area, have your map open and put in the address of what you're going, so you know that you're going on the right area versus you see that you're going further and further away from where you need to go, so that could be a danger. So I always like to keep that map open, and when I see that I'm getting close, I'm like, all right, I might exit out. But I think that's also a great safety feature you want to keep for yourself, because everybody, you could trust people to a certain extent, but if you're unfamiliar with a country, and maybe it's a country that doesn't speak English, it can get really scary and intimidating. So you really want to make sure that you keep yourself safe. Very good. I think this is such great discussions we're having, like real great topics. Anybody else have any questions? And hi to everybody that's joined in. So I'll give people a few minutes to definitely.
What about you? What's some places you think about traveling after everything?
Oh man!
Or whenever you feel safe to do so.
I really wanted to go to Italy. I thought Italy would have been a great place to check out. I really love some of the history there, and then again, loving fashion and stuff.
I was about to say fashion. That's what for you. That's what
exactly. I would have loved to experience that. So that's one place I would love to go. My uncle, he's been to Amsterdam, and he talks quite highly about Amsterdam. So he was like, "Oh, it's so beautiful. They have so much things to do." So I was just like, okay, maybe I should check it out. But I really wanted to go to Maldives. I thought Maldives was such a great place, and I've always wanted to go. I can't necessarily say after COVID, but I think that's still one place that I really would like to go after. And I heard
your IG is gonna be. It's like a IG walking. Every step is the IG post you get. It's so beautiful.
Yes, that's what I heard. And it's so funny because I learned about Maldives because when I was in middle school, we had a project, and like they were getting like all these different countries, and I'm like, man, I wanted to do Trinidad. So they were like, oh no, we only have Maldives left. So I was just like, really? Okay. So I did it, and I was just
and look at you, you're like, oh my.
Yeah, I was just like, this is so nice. So I can honestly say I knew Maldives before it was IG Maldives.
Okay. So if you did it in middle school, you're right. You do it before all of us. A lot of people only know it from Instagram.
This is really interesting. So I really wanted to check out that place, and still do. And like you mentioned about South Korea, I know Korea has a lot of fashion. They have a lot of designers out there. So I think that's some place that I would love to go visit, because they're really talented over there as far as like with fashion projects that's been coming out of Korea. So I think I would definitely love to check that out.
And the food is amazing.
Yes, and that's another thing. Talk about food. How do you?
Oh man, people always get on to me because we sleep on these the street vendors. So I have never, thank God I haven't been sick or I had food poisoning. But man, like when I was in Mexico City, I think all I had was Mexico tacos from street vendors when I was there. So
that's so good.
Street vendors is big, and then also do a little bit of research. So, especially if you're going to stay in an all-inclusive resort, sometimes they prioritize those all-inclusive resorts that make it more homely, friendly. So you might have. My thing is, when I travel, I don't want to eat anything that I can have in the United States. Now, me and my friend, we do have a thing sometimes. Some of these fast food restaurants, they're so different. It is worth trying out,
Oh God, that is so true.
So
that is
yeah,
so
I'm not gonna try to lie about that. But some of these fast food restaurants, and my friend, when we went to Jamaica, he raved about KFC.
KFC,
and I'm
yes,
and I'm like, bro, I don't even like KFC in the States,
Let me tell you.
It changed my life. I'm like, okay, man, you're owning something. This is very good. So
let me tell you, the KFC in America, in the States, mean the calf fried chicken. That's what it means.
It's different. I thought he was lying, but he was spot on with that one though.
Yeah, I think you would really enjoy the KFC in Trinidad. Trinidad also have another restaurant called Royal Castle, and it's to the point where when I get off of the plane, I'm happy to see my family. I'm happy to see outside.
Yeah.
But take me to the nearest Royal Castle for me, please. Or KFC. It's just a different taste, and it's just a different. It's just I don't know. I just can't put my finger on it. And it's been like that for years. Years. Whether it's Trinidad or even I know Bahamas, they also have their own KFC as well. I just can't. It's just really good. And like you mentioned, I think different countries have they put their own spin on things, and it's really nice to get to see the differences. Like, oh wow, this tastes extremely different from where I tried it from somewhere else. So very, very, very tasty. What are some of the best foods you've tried?
I guess it's more recent. I was in Jamaica in January, so KFC. But some of these, Colombia, they have oh my gosh, I can't believe I can't. But they had another chicken spot.
Burger. I will tell you that right now. The Colombian burger is.
Oh, if you want to speak burgers, though, I didn't believe this, but Belize, they have a very amazing burger. I don't know. It was so fresh. It was very good. Belize have very good burger, too. Yeah. And then these Asian-based, there's really no chain that I really like in Asia. It's just literally stalls and street vendors that I really enjoyed in Asian-based countries.
Wow. That's great. Oh, so we have another question here. It says, what are some tips when you want to travel to multiple countries in one trip? That's a great question.
Man, that is a very question, but if you're not up for planning or, maybe hitting into some, I don't know how to say it, but you have to be very relaxed, very accepting, because it's going to be some long days, so, and it might be some air planes that you never heard of before, but it's fun. I mean, I always try to get the most out of my trips, but the best tips I can do is planning. So even if you have to take a train over or take a taxi over to another country, try to look at as many different options as possible, because traveling from country to country can get very expensive. Yes. And another point that you want to look at, so when I went from Belize to Guatemala, there was an entrance fee. There's an entrance fee and an exit fee once you enter the country. So that's one of the things that you want to know about or have a research at least, because if you get there like any other country and trying to get your passport stamp, you got to have the monies to get the entrance fee to go into the next country sometimes. So just want to it's all about research, and don't be afraid to take a transit that you wouldn't normally have taken.
Yeah, I agree. Definitely be open-minded. I think one thing I could definitely add to that is look at the length of your stay. See, okay, where is it close to travel to versus where you already are? So you could say, okay, I'm in Barcelona. I see that I could take one of the trains and go to do a day trip at a place versus staying there. So you give yourself different options. And I would look at TripAdvisor as well and see what other places people have mentioned. And sometimes they may not have to necessarily be a big place. It could be a small town that is, has a lot to offer as well. So definitely be open-minded.
Oh, another thing that I've just got into this past year and a half is travel light packing. I've been on this one backpack thing for the past year or 9 months or so, and it's life-changing. I mean, traveling light, I mean, I know it might be a little difficult for women, But if you can, try to travel light, because I know you're not trying to hear it, but it just
Oh,
saves you, because you got to think about some of the infrastructure in some countries. It's so hard to have your roller packet with you and all your hands are full. But if you just have your backpack, so much easier to do it.
yeah, it's hard for me. I got to travel with the ring light. I got to
Yeah.
travel with the blow dryer. I got to travel with 15 pairs of shoes because,
Yeah.
got to change up. So I totally agree with you. I try to travel with a carry-on, and
Hmm.
I'll just use like a medium-sized purse just to carry like things just in case. If I did check in a bag, if and
Yep.
my luggage were to get lost, at least I have a pair of pajamas, one outfit, toiletries in that bag as well.
Right.
So you want to prepare yourself. So I couldn't agree more than travel light. And then it's easier to go around as far as like you traveling. Let's say if you got to take the train or something, you're gonna have like 10 million
Right.
suitcases.
And that, if nothing screams tourist more, is getting on public transit with a roller suitcase.
Yes, yes, it's hard. I know here in New York, it's hard because some places they may have the elevator, some don't. And when you have to carry everything down on the train, I mean down those steps.
A lot. You
Oh,
like, I'll never carry a suitcase again.
you will see like some rodent or rat running past you like, okay, you decided to pack too heavy. I'm on my way.
Yeah.
So it's terrible. But I see that we're getting close here to the time because we do only have an hour for the lives because Instagram police will cut off the live.
I understand.
Is there any last questions? And if not, I definitely want to open the floor to please reach out to Desmond. And if you have any questions or concerns, definitely please reach out to him because he has so much experience on this. He knows so much about this, and he's the best person to help you as far as getting your first time traveling experience, the best experience.
I
So,
really appreciate it. Thank you so much
yeah,
for having me.
well,
You are a mogul, and you are good at what you do. That's what I
oh,
can say.
thank
I,
you.
I
I
really
try
appreciate you,
my
and
best.
making this my first live experience. It's not as terrifying as I thought it was going to be. You made
Yeah,
it.
it's
You
more
laid
fun.
it out for me, and I appreciate it. Thank you so
You're
much.
welcome. It's a lot of fun. And I think what's so fun about it is just being able to just conversate and people are educated about different things and they just know what to do moving forward.
Right.
So very good. I'm very happy that you were able to join and oh
And
this is
we're able to still be connected. Everybody's, you haven't seen anyone, just on social media. It's good to have interaction and dialogue, even if it's
yeah.
from a distance. So thank you.
Exactly. I agree. I agree. And I think this is a great time to definitely reconnect with others and see how everybody's doing. Because if people are saying, oh, I don't have time, you're at home in your
Yeah.
bed watching Dora the Explorer. So you have time
or
now.
binge watching all your Netflix shows. So I totally understand.
Exactly. So, oh, yeah. So we have one more minute. So please, if you have any other questions, feel free to either DM Desmond as well.
Yep.
I'm going to also have this. I'm going to download this and I'm going to put this in my IGTV so you could share it with your friends. And I will share that with you, Desmond, as well. This is
Thank you
also,
so much. I
yeah,
really
for
appreciate
you
it.
to have and you can have for your platform as well. So, guys, happy Sunday, everybody. I
Thank
hope
you.
everybody
Have a blessed day.
who cooked today. Nobody didn't cook today. Oh,
I know I'm trying to get a plate from somewhere.
definitely. So I'm gonna go try to look something to eat.
All right. Thank you so much for having me. I really appreciate
Guys,
it again.
take care. You're
Thank you.
welcome.
Be
Thank
blessed.
you.
Yeah.
Bye.
Bye bye.